All right, welcome everyone to another deep dive. Today we're tackling this really fascinating transcript about a dancer, a guy named Guangmin.
Yeah, this is one that really caught my eye too when you sent it over.
I mean, his story, it's really something. He starts off in China, discovers street dance, then ends up in New York building his own company, Umami. I mean, that's quite a journey, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. And what's really great about this transcript is it's not just like a list of achievements. You can really hear his voice, his thoughts on what dance means, the challenges he faced. Like there's real depth here.
Absolutely. So I guess our mission today is to really unpack all that, right? See what we can learn from Guangmin's experiences, what kind of insights he can offer to other dancers, maybe even people outside the dance world.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to uncover here. Like how a passion for dance takes root and grows, how the whole cultural context shapes street dance in different places, and of course that big leap from learning to actually creating.
Right, that's a huge one. So let's jump right in. Wang Min's story starts in 2009 in Yanji, which is in the Jilin province of China. He goes to this local workshop, and that's his very first encounter with street dance. And what struck me right away was his first teacher. This wasn't just some guy who knew the latest moves. This guy had, like, a whole history with movement.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he learned folk dance as a kid, then street dance in South Korea back in the 90s. He even toured with Happy China Tour as a backup dancer. I mean, that's pretty impressive, right?
Wow, yeah. That's a really eclectic background. You don't often see that combination of folk dance and street dance. It makes you wonder how that influenced his teaching style.
Totally. And it kind of sets the stage for the kind of, I guess, initial exposure Guangmin had. Like, he was learning all these different styles right off the bat. Street jazz, Korean street jazz, hip hop, popping, house, locking. I mean, it's a lot to take in, right?
Oh, for sure. Especially when you're just starting out and you don't even know the real differences between them yet. It's like being thrown into the deep end.
Yeah, exactly. Like getting a sampler platter of different cuisines, but you don't really savor any particular flavor.
Haha. That's a good analogy. But I get it'll spark your curiosity, make you want to explore more.
Oh, definitely. And it seems like Guangmin was definitely curious. He mentions being drawn to house dance early on, specifically because of Akon's music.
That's interesting. Music is such a powerful driver, isn't it? Like it can really pull you into a particular style.
It really can. And it's funny, he wasn't so keen on popping at first. He found it, quote, boring, and thought the instructors weren't that great. It just goes to show how subjective it all is, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we all connect with things differently, and those early experiences can really shape your perceptions.
So let's move on to his university years. He goes to Tianjin and joins the street dance club there. But unlike that first workshop, this one was all about popping.
Oh, wow. So a complete shift from his initial experience.
Yeah.
I wonder what prompted that change.
Well, he talks about seeing Shao Hai from Beijing Five Crew perform popping, and that just blew his mind. It completely changed his view of the style.
Ah, the power of seeing a master at work. Sometimes it takes that kind of inspiration to truly appreciate a form you might have dismissed before.
Totally. And at university, he also gets exposed to what was called LA style, which is basically controlled choreography. So he's starting to see different approaches moving beyond just freestyle.
Right, so he's building a broader foundation, exploring different ways of moving and expressing himself.
And then, in 2010, he makes his first trip to the U.S., to the West Coast. He goes to some pretty famous studios, Movement Lifestyle, Millennium Dance Complex. He takes classes with Kyle Hanagami, whose style was labeled jazz. But Guangmin notes that it felt very different from what he knew as street jazz.
That's interesting. I wonder what those key differences were for him. It speaks to how labels can be so broad and how the actual experience of a style can vary so much depending on the teacher, the context, all of that.
Yeah, definitely. And then he mentions taking classes with people who, and I quote, resembled the toddler industry style. It's a pretty striking description, isn't it?
Toddler industry style.
Yeah.
Wow. What do you think he means by that?
Well, I guess it points to that very specific aesthetic you often see in, like, commercial work aimed at younger audiences, maybe stuff that's overly cute or simplistic. It sounds like it didn't really resonate with him.
Right. Maybe it felt too manufactured, lacking that rawness and authenticity he was looking for.
Maybe. He also mentions experiencing Hollywood-style choreography and taking classes with Keone and Mari Madrid. It sounds like a real immersion into the LA scene.
So, after soaking up all those influences in the U.S., he goes back to China and starts exploring his own choreography. He forms a dance group with some friends at another university, and then, get this, He starts dancing in nightclubs in Chengdu.
Whoa, so he's really jumping into the professional dance world at this point.
Yeah, and not just performing. He's assistant choreographer, too. That's a pretty big step.
But it wasn't all glamorous. He talks about the demanding lifestyle of a full-time club dancer, doing the same routines over and over. He even mentions feeling like he was being consumed as a product.
That's a powerful statement. Consumed as a product. What do you think he means by that?
Well, I imagine it can feel pretty dehumanizing when you're just churning out the same moves night after night, maybe not feeling that creative spark anymore. Plus, the late nights, the pressure to always be on, it can take its toll.
Yeah, I can see that. It sounds like that experience really made him question whether this was the path he wanted to stay on.
And ultimately, it seems like it wasn't. He ends up moving to Rochester and then New York City in 2016. But what's interesting is there's actually a lull in his dance life for a bit.
Oh, really? After all that, you'd think he'd be diving right into the New York scene.
You would, right. But he says he was mostly just practicing on his own during that time. It's a good reminder that even when you're passionate about something, life can throw you curveballs.
It's true. Sometimes you need to take a step back, regroup, figure out your next move.
And that's exactly what he did. He eventually finds his way to Broadway Dance Center, BDC. And it's there that he takes a house class with Effie, and this class just blows his mind. He says it was totally different from what he thought house was. More grounded, less flowy, with influences from boboing and floor work.
Wow, so even within house, there are all these variations and interpretations. It's constantly evolving.
Totally. And he's blown away by the whole dance industry in New York, the level of the instructors. He starts taking classes with Carlos Nato at BDC and also at ESP, Evolution Studios Project Group. And at ESP, he gets to learn from some real OG house teachers like Sibo, Echo, Tony McGregor.
Ah, the OGs. That's where the real knowledge is, right? Learning from those who shaped the foundations.
Exactly. And he encounters different approaches even among these masters. Sibo's style was more flowy, while Echo was more grounded. It just reinforces that there's no one right way to do it.
Now, here's where things get really interesting. Guangmin talks about how it took him 7, maybe 8 years to really grasp the flow in-house, that feeling. 7 or 8 years, that's dedication.
It really is. He mentions being inspired by seeing dancers like Hero at Step Yog Game Up and another European dancer at Outbreak. It was about that freedom, that connection to the music.
And it seems like his mentor, Cricket from FF Official, played a huge role in this. He kept pushing Guangmin to find the feeling of up, which was apparently crucial for achieving that floating sensation.
But it sounds like Cricket's explanations were more intuitive than technical. Like he was guiding Guangmin towards an internal understanding rather than just teaching steps.
Yeah, it's like that saying, give a man a fish, feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, feed him for a lifetime. Cricket was teaching him to feel the dance, not just imitate it.
And the aha moment finally came during a late-night practice back in China. Guangmin's watching trees swaying in sync with the rhythm of house music, and suddenly it clicks. He gets it.
Wow, that's a beautiful image. Finding the key to movement in something so natural, so unexpected.
And then he had to figure out how to translate that feeling into his steps.
Yeah.
It wasn't an overnight thing. It was a gradual process of integrating that understanding into his movement.
It's like learning any craft, isn't it? You keep refining, keep deepening your understanding.
Totally. And throughout this whole process, the role of mentorship is so clear. He talks about Cricket and Saku, also from FF Official, as these incredibly influential figures. They didn't just teach classes, they fostered real connections, a deeper cultural understanding.
That's something you hear a lot from dancers, isn't it? That it's not just about the steps. It's about the community, the culture, the history behind it.
Absolutely. And those relationships weren't forced or formal. They just grew organically from Guangmin's dedication and his desire to learn.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Guangmin talks about the New York club scene, and he admits he was actually kind of hesitant about it at first.
Really? That's surprising. You'd think the clubs would be a natural draw for a dancer, especially in New York.
You'd think so, right? But it wasn't until he went to this party after a Korea National Contemporary Dance Company performance that his perspective changed. He saw DJ Spinna, also known as DJ SB, and was just blown away by the atmosphere he created.
So it was the DJ, the music, that made the difference.
It seems like it. He talks about feeling a different kind of freedom in the club, like he could lose himself in the music in a way that wasn't possible in a class setting.
Right. The club becomes this space for pure expression, for connecting with the music and the people around you.
Exactly. And he makes this interesting distinction between sessions, which are more about practice and exchange between dancers and parties or clubs, which are more about letting loose and just enjoying the vibe.
He also mentions that the OGs advised against practicing classroom choreography at a party. It's about being in the moment, not showing off what you learned in class.
He even talks about some dancers who would spend like hours and hours in the clubs. It was their life, their training ground.
Which brings us to the question of what it actually means to be a dancer. Guangmin describes it as a craft, something that requires real dedication, knowledge, a deep understanding of its foundations.
It's about more than just moving your body. It's a continuous pursuit of mastery.
Okay, let's talk about Umami, his dance company. It all started after another group he was part of, Neighbors, kind of fizzled out during the pandemic.
Right, and Umami was conceived as a dance theater company, which was partly inspired by his mentor Cricket's vision.
So quite a different direction from a competition-focused group like Neighbors. It's about storytelling, exploring themes, engaging the audience on a different level.
And it sounds like Bo Park's emphasis on incorporating real-life elements into the choreography played a big role, too, making the work relatable, even for people who aren't necessarily into dance.
Umami took off pretty quickly, didn't it? They started with a good number of members and were putting on performances like their Elements showcase within the first year.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. He mentions learning this principle of creating consistently, of quantity over quality in the early stages. It's about building momentum, experimenting, not getting bogged down in perfectionism.
And the company evolved, didn't it? Some members left to pursue more commercial work. Others joined who were really into freestyle.
It's natural, isn't it? People's goals and interests shift over time.
But then in their third year, they start getting funding and some really good performance opportunities. And what's surprising is that Guangmin credits their online presence, their YouTube videos, for this breakthrough.
Really? That's fascinating. So even without like fancy SEO or anything, their work was getting out there, attracting attention.
It goes to show the power of just putting yourself out there, right? Letting your work speak for itself.
Totally. And they get invited to perform at some pretty prestigious places, Northeast University in Boston, a dance festival in Texas, with an AAPI focus. Their reach is definitely expanding.
Now let's talk about the practical side of things. Guangmin talks about balancing his dance life with his main job, which is in data science. And he touches on how other Umami members have different work situations. Some are full-time dancers, others have day jobs.
It's the reality for so many artists, isn't it? Trying to make ends meet while also pursuing your passion.
Especially with the late-night nature of the dance world. Classes, rehearsals, parties, it can be hard to juggle it all.
He mentioned some strategies for managing his energy levels, like getting sunlight and being mindful of his caffeine intake. Practical stuff, but it can make a big difference.
Oh, for sure. And luckily, his current workplace is understanding and offers flexible hours.
All right, finally, let's get to Guangmin's advice for aspiring dancers. And this is where he really emphasizes the importance of understanding street dance as a culture, not just a set of moves.
Yeah, that's crucial. He distinguishes between the commercialized version you often see in the media and the original cultural context, which is rooted in community, shared experience, emotional expression.
He brings up the importance of mentorship again, saying it's crucial for really grasping the cultural depth of street dance. And he shares Saku's explanation of ciphers, which in their original form were about sharing emotions, connecting with the community, even honoring those who've passed away.
It's a far cry from those performance-focused ciphers you often see nowadays. It's about something deeper, something more profound.
He also touches on how dance can be a lifelong pursuit, and he sees this reflected in the active OG house dancers in New York. It challenges that whole notion of dance being just for young people.
Yeah, it's inspiring to see people who've dedicated their lives to this art form still going strong.
And for those who are outside the main dance hubs, Siku advises them to connect with their own local dance cultures, to look for parallels and possibilities for exchange. It's about recognizing that universality of movement while also celebrating local traditions.
And Guangmin acknowledges that while styles like house and hip-hop originate in Black culture, they're also open to people from all backgrounds. But he stresses the need to engage with them respectfully, with an awareness of their origins and cultural significance.
That's key, isn't it? It's about understanding the context, the history, the potential sensitivities associated with certain moves or styles.
He also makes this really interesting point about the vocabulary of dance being universal, but the story you tell through it being unique to your own background and experiences.
That's a great way to put it. He encourages watching documentaries about different dance styles and cultures to deepen your understanding. And ultimately, Finding your own path often involves those chance encounters and those pivotal connections with mentors.
And he highlights that common thread running through all these different forms, the universality of movement and rhythm.
So, to wrap things up, I think Guangmin's journey really underscores the dedication, the curiosity, the cultural immersion that's needed to truly connect with a dance form. It's about going beyond the steps, understanding the history, the values, the spirit behind it.
And his story shows us that beautiful transformation from student to creator, the vital role of mentorship, and that profound cultural significance woven into the fabric of street dance.
So for all you listeners out there, I guess the takeaway is think about the dances you encounter in your own lives. What stories do they tell? Where do they come from?
Maybe this has inspired you to check out some dance documentaries or even explore local dance communities wherever you are, because the journey of learning and understanding dance, it's an ongoing one, and it's full of amazing discoveries and opportunities for self-expression.
And that's it for another deep dive. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Until next time.